So, you're sitting at home one day casually scrolling through Twitter when suddenly you smell something worse than you ever smelled before. Obviously, the first thing you do is accuse whichever housemate has the worst diet. Unless you live alone, then you're gonna have to look at yourself. But what if the smell doesn't go away, even when you go outside? Well, if you're like the residents of the Sidoarjo Regency in eastern Java, Indonesia, you could be unlucky enough to be dealing with a giant mud volcano. Here's what you need to know. 15 years after scalding mud and gas first burst from the ground in Sidoarjo in eastern Java, the flow of foul-smelling mud shows no signs of stopping, according to TomoNews Asia. The mud now covers an area of more than 6.5 square kilometers or 2.5 square miles and has forced around 60,000 people to leave the area or adapt to the unpleasant environment, with one study cited by CNA showing that the flow releases 100,000 tons of methane every year. The Guardian reports scientists associated with oil and gas company Lapindo Brantas blame an earthquake in Yogyakarta 280 kilometers or 174 miles away for the flow. However, at a 2008 conference in Cape Town, of 74 independent petroleum geologists, 42 agreed that drilling had caused the mud flow. Pipes have since been used to redirect mud flow into a nearby river, according to CNA. And in 2006, the Sidoarjo Mud Flow Mitigation Center built an embankment around the mud flow site to prevent mud flowing out into surrounding areas. However, issues are still arising. The mud from the burst is about 60,000 to 90,000 cubic meters per day. Patyasina Jeffrey Recchi, head of the Sidoarjo Mud Flow Mitigation Center, told CNA this week. This is much more than the 30 million per year that can be diverted into the nearby Porong River. The embankment around the site is also prone to leaking, according to an article in the AIP Conference Proceedings Journal, with Patyasina adding to CNA that it was built in a rush. One strange additional element of the story is the arrival of so-called disaster tourists into the area after the mud began to flow. Some residents who worked at factories swallowed up by the mud became tour guides, according to Reuters, ferrying tourists around the area to get a better look. Around 90% of residents affected by the disaster received some form of compensation in its aftermath, with Lapindo Brantas ordered to pay 3.8 trillion rupiah, or $415 million, and the Indonesian government also making contributions. That didn't replace the livelihoods lost, though, and so turning to the tourist industry made sense for locals. Of course, disaster tourism is a little more dubious on the part of the tourists. Is it really right to go and take selfies in an area where people have lost their homes? And isn't it especially messed up to do it when the disaster is still ongoing, where mud is literally still destroying people's lives? Who's to say? But let's just hope these people would be equally as accommodating to people coming to take a look at their destroyed homes if it ever happened to them.